Hi guys. Today we're going to talk about how to solve rational inequalities. Hopefully you're remembering that rational means fractions. This is very similar to what we were doing yesterday in our notes with quadratic inequalities, but there's a few changes of how to find our critical values. So step 1, we want to rewrite the inequality so 0 is on one side. There is no cross multiplying happening in these problems. We want to make sure that there is a single fraction on one side and the equation basically equals 0. Alright, step 2, we want to set the top and the bottom equal to 0 and solve for x. Those are going to be our critical values. So if I'm kind of following along with this first example over here, we already have it set equal to 0, so we're good, and we only have one fraction on the left. So I'm ready to go ahead and set the top equal to 0, and I get x equals -1, and the bottom equal to 0, and I get x equals 4. So then the next step is going to be to place both of those numbers on a number line, and we're going to test a point in each region. This is the same kind of testing that you were doing yesterday with quadratics. Okay, so I'm going to choose to test x equals -2. To start, when I plug in -2, I'm going to get -1 over -6, which is positive, 1 over 6, which is greater than or equal to 0. So I do want to shade to the left of -1. I'm going to use a bracket there because my original problem was or equal to. Next I'm going to test x equals 0. So for this one I get 1 over -4, which is not greater than or equal to 0. And then I'm going to test x equals 5. 5 plus 1 is 6, 5 minus 4 is 1, 1 is greater than 6 over 1 is 6, 6 is greater than or equal to 0, so I'm going to shade to the right of the 4 as well. Now, here's the big thing. I'm going to use a parenthesis on the 4 because 4 makes the denominator 0, and we can never have 0 in the denominator. So what I do when I write my answer, 4 is not included in my solution set. I'm going to say -infinity to -1 union parenthesis 4 to infinity. The last step would just be to write your answer in interval notation. But the most important point here, this double stars, is to remind you that 0 is not allowed in the denominator. So the critical value that makes the denominator 0 will always get parentheses, not brackets. Okay, let's go ahead and try the second one. The second one, we do have to move everything so it is on one side. So x over x plus 1, I'm going to subtract the 12 over x plus 1 over. Now it's less than 0. And luckily in this problem I already have common denominators, so I can write it as one fraction fairly quickly. This is now what I'm going to work with to find my critical values. So if I set the top equal to 0, I get x equals 12. If I set the bottom equal to 0, I get x equals negative 1. So I'm going to put those values on my number line. Okay, now I'm going to test something that's less than negative 1. I'm going to choose negative 2. And I can plug it in either to the original, or I can plug it into the one where I already have common denominators. I'm going to choose that one. So negative 2 minus 12 is negative 14. Negative 2 plus 1 is negative 1. That turns to positive 14, which is not less than 0. Next I'm going to test x equals 0. So I'm going to get negative 12 over 1, which is negative 12 and is less than 0. So I am going to shade in the middle. And then I'm going to test x equals 13. 13 minus 12 is 1. 13 plus 1 is 14. This is not less than 0. Now, be really careful with your parentheses and brackets here. The value that makes the denominator 0 is negative 1. So that one gets an automatic parenthesis. 12 doesn't worry about the denominator, but the original sign in the problem is just a less than sign. So that one's also going to get a parenthesis. My final answer here then is going to be parentheses negative 1 comma 12. Just a little asterisk about this. If you're looking at my answer key that I posted in Schoology, the sign in the problem is different. It's greater than. So mine is going to look a little bit different than this one right here. This is the right way to do it when it's less than. Alright, let's go ahead and try another one. This one also, I need to move everything to one side. So I'm going to subtract the 6 over x minus 3 over. Again, I already have common denominators. So 4 minus 6 is just negative 2 over x minus 3. This time when I'm finding my critical values, I don't have anything that's going to make sense on the top. I don't need to set negative 2 equal to 0. So all I'm going to worry about is the bottom. If x minus 3 equals 0, I get x equals 3. I'll go ahead and put that on my number line. I'm going to start by testing x equals 0. That's something that's less than 3. So if I plug in 0, I get negative 2 over negative 3, which turns to positive 2/3. That is greater than 0. So I do want to shade to the left. I'm also going to test x equals 4. And if I plug that in, I get negative 2 over 1, which is negative 2, not greater than 0. So I don't shade to the left. Now, negative 3 makes my denominator 0, so it should automatically get a parenthesis, not a bracket. And when I write my answer, reading left to right, I would be at negative infinity to 3 with parentheses. Okay, we're ready for the last one. This one again, I need to move everything to one side. The trouble with this one is that I do not automatically have common denominators. This does not mean that you cross multiply. So my common denominator here is going to be 3x plus 2 and x. So my first term needs the x. My second term needs the 3x plus 2 group. So first, I'm going to do negative 5 times x, and then minus 5 times 3x plus 2 for my second group. And these are both over my common denominator now. Now I'll go ahead and distribute on the top, so negative 5x minus 15x minus 10. And I end up with negative 20x minus 10 over x times 3x plus 2. So I'll go ahead and set each of those parts equal to 0 to get my critical values. If negative 20x minus 10 equals 0, then I get x is negative 1/2. From the denominator, I also get x equals 0 and x equals negative 2 over 3. So this time I'm going to have 3 critical values to put on my number line. Make sure you pay attention from least to greatest. Negative 2/3 is more negative than negative 1/2. So we have a little bit more trouble on this one also picking out test points. Alright, something to the left of negative 2/3 would be negative 1. I think for these I'm just going to go back to the original to plug these in. It's just as easy as using the one with common denominators in this case. So I've got negative 5 over negative 3 plus 2, which is negative 1, less than or equal to 5 over negative 1. So 5 less than or equal to negative 5, no, that is not true. Okay, now I need a fraction in between negative 2/3 and negative 1/2. So the easiest way to come up with that is to put negative 2/3 and negative 1/2 over common denominators. 6 doesn't give me enough room though, because negative 2/3 would be negative 4 over 6, and negative 1/2 would be negative 3 over 6. So if I multiply that by 2, I can put them both over 12, and I can say that negative 2/3 is negative 8 over 12, negative 1/2 would be negative 6 over 12, so a number in between would be negative 7 over 12. It's a little bit complicated, but I know you can do it. Alright, so if I plug in negative 12, I think I'm just going to use decimals here, so I get negative 5 over, when I plug negative 7 over 12 times 3 plus 2 into my calculator, I get 0.25, and 5 divided by negative 7 over 12 is negative 8.57. Simplifying my left-hand side, I get negative 20, which is less than negative 8.57. So this is a yes region between negative 2/3 and negative 1/2. Alright, a fraction that would be between 0 and negative 1/2 would be negative 1/4. Again, I'm going to use my calculator a little bit here, so I'm looking at negative 5 over 1.25 is less than or equal to negative 20. Negative 5 divided by negative 1.25 is negative 4, which is not less than negative 20. And then I need something that's more than 0, so I'm going to choose 1. So I'm going to get negative 5 divided by 5, less than or equal to 5. Negative 1 is less than 5, so this is another yes region. Now, let's talk about parentheses and brackets. The points that made the denominator 0 were 0 and negative 2/3. So those have to get automatic parentheses. The negative 1/2 can get a bracket because that's what was in the original problem. So when I write my solution, it's going to be negative 2/3, comma negative 1/2. The negative 2/3 needs to get a parenthesis. The negative 1/2 gets a bracket, union 0 to infinity, both with parentheses. Okay, so just pay attention to your parentheses and brackets and you should be fine. This is not on the quiz on Tuesday, but it will be on the second quiz of the chapter. Good luck.